Yes, exactly.
And
yes.
The thing is, the kind of religion I'm railing against is the stuff that people are actually practicing.
Yes.
Not this highly rarefied stuff
Yes.
that you'll find in an Oxford college.
Yes, quite.
And it's like they can waffle between these two views so easily, and it makes it really hard to pin them down and wrestle with the ideas. Is when you're not going to commit yourself, when you're not going to support a particular position. There's nothing you can do.
Scientists don't do that, do we, really? I mean, we may have many vices, but I don't think that's one of them.
We get ornery about our positions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you try and argue with us about what we think about things, we will spend hours babbling, trying to get the verbiage just right, trying to get all the ideas out. But we're not trying to obscure things. What we're trying to do is get a more refined understanding of the concepts we're talking about.
Do you think some, never mind about theology, but that there are some academic disciplines that do deliberately try to obscure?
Well, yes.
Yeah. I once coined, how did it go? It was Dawkins' law of conservation of obscurity, which was something like obscurantism in an academic discipline expands to fill the vacuum of its intrinsic simplicity. So a subject like physics, which is genuinely difficult,
yes,
good physicists will really try. It's hard, but they'll go out of their way. I mean, Einstein tried, not very successfully, but he tried to explain using analogies with trains going at near the speed of light and things. Physicists will really work hard at trying to remove the obscurity from their subject.
Yes.
But there seem to be other disciplines which have almost nothing to say and therefore have to invent obscurity in order to be taken seriously.
And often it's to the disservice of the discipline. I mean, I'm at a small liberal arts college, so I can't be too cruel to my colleagues, but that we have people who think postmodernism is a great thing, and they're right. There's a kernel of really good stuff in there. There's a good way, new perspectives on thinking about literature and thinking about culture, and it's worth pursuing. But then what's happened is that they've sort of imploded, destroyed their own discipline with this effusion of gobbledygook on top of it.
Where you gain prestige by being obscure.
Exactly.
I think I had a wonderful story at Oxford. I think, yes, there was a postmodernist scholar expounding something, and the person he was talking to said, "I find that extremely difficult to understand." And the reply was, "Oh, thank you very much." It was a great compliment.
Oh, yeah, it's exactly backward. I'm both of us write, and that when we write, what we're trying to do is we're trying to distill ideas down to make them comprehensible and not
constantly struggling to be understood, constantly struggling to make clear, to all the time looking for clarity.
Yes, all the time. This is what I'm doing too. Is you read some of these papers nowadays, and it's this dense molecular biology jargon, and it's got references to all this past work that the group has done and so forth. And a modern scientific paper is this. It's kind of painful to read sometimes, unless you're immersed in that particular culture.
Yes.
And then what you want to do is you want to pull that out and clarify, simplify, give the background, explain the concepts.
Put yourself in the position of the reader and
exactly.
think, what are the difficulties the reader would be having. It's one of the things I most admire about Darwin, that however he may not have always been successful, but it's absolutely clear the moment you open a page of Darwin, he really, really wants to be understood. He's working hard to be understood.
Yes.
And with immense sincerity.
Yes. And that was a book that wasn't written necessarily for just his peers. It was written for everyone in England to read.
Yes. And he really wanted to be understood.
Yes.
And sometimes I think he perhaps realized that he wasn't succeeding and tried and tried and tried again to make it clear.
Yeah.
We were both victims of a sort of confidence trick and persuaded to take part in this film called Expelled, although it wasn't called that when I think we were invited to.
It was called Crossroads, Science and Religion.
I actually don't remember very much about it. I do remember that I was very, very strongly given the impression that this was a pro-science film, and it was going to show up the ridiculousness of the creationist position. I was therefore extremely startled when I read, probably on your blog, that actually this film is made by a creationist front and is creationist propaganda. What was your impression when you were originally asked to? Well,
when they called me, they didn't tell me it was necessarily going to be pro-science, but they said there was going to be a serious discussion of the conflict between science and religion, and that they told me that they were going to be trying to get both sides, and I thought that sounded perfectly acceptable. I don't mind hearing discussion from the other side. So yeah, I agreed to it. One interesting thing is, before I agreed to it, I got on the web and I went looking around to see if this was a legitimate outfit, of course, and they had this nice website with all these film properties they were working with. I talked to Barbara Forrest a while back, and she said she was one of the first people called for this, and they asked her if she'd be willing to participate, and she said, well, let me look around, and she looked around, there was nothing on the web, and she told them this, that you've obviously got nothing there, I don't believe you, and she turned them down, and then they quickly cobbled up this fake website to fool the rest of us that came along. So yeah, I'm happy to talk about my opinions on religion. They don't have to lie to me, but it just kind of puts someone on shaky ground when they have to lie to us to get us to do an interview.
And I actually went out of my way to help them. I put myself to some trouble to find them a good venue in London, and I put myself to some trouble to go to London to do it. I thought I was going to be interviewed by a man called Mark
Mathis.
Mathis. And I was very helpful to him, and I was very friendly to him, and I feel kind of betrayed.
Yes.
I never heard of Ben Stein. I mean, I was ushered into when I was in the room and he came in. A rather unpleasant man, I thought. I knew nothing about him, but I didn't like him. But I didn't know that there was so much to dislike then, as I've since discovered.
Right. Yes. Yeah. No, I knew it was Mark Mathis. He probably didn't tell me it was Ben Stein because I would know who Ben Stein was. Nixon speechwriter, conservative.
Yes.
It was Mark Mathis, and when he was there, we had conversations. He was friendly. He was polite. A while back, I was on a radio interview with Mark Mathis, and it was like 180 degrees, night and day. That at the end of the interview, he ended up exhorting all the listeners to go to that guy's blog, and you'll see he's an atheist. He's an atheist. He's an atheist. He was screaming it into the phone.
Mathis was?
Yes.
He's a religious nut himself. I mean, I assumed he was insincere.
Oh no,
really?
he was using the fact that I'm an atheist as an indictable offense.
So he's actually one of those. I mean, I assumed he was just a cynical sort of operator.
If he is, he's very cynical, because he was cynical with a Christian radio audience too.
Oh, really? How fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay. Well. We are going to see this film.
Yes. We've got free tickets.
Yes. Right. And so I look forward to doing so, and maybe we can talk about it again afterwards.
Yeah. And actually what I look forward to is they don't know you're coming. This is going to be interesting. We hope they'll let you in.
What about you? Do they know?
They know me, but I'm not quite as famous as you are. And we'll see how they react.
But hitherto, haven't they had some kind of a rule that only sort of sympathizers are allowed in?
Yes, when I signed up, they asked me for my affiliation and what group I was with, and then they just said, how many guests do you want to bring along with you? And I said, oh, well, I'll probably bring a few guests. So I selected a bunch. They didn't ask about those. So you're going as my guest.
Good. Well, I look forward to it very much, and we'll have another conversation sometime later.
Should be
Thank you very much.
enlightening. Yes. Thanks.